She mentioned how at one point on her way home from his place, she actually fantasized about driving into the river because she smelt like him and didn't want a scent to corrupt me. However, that made sense. She said tried to end it, but was too weak, and only after learning that she was pregnant that it actually woke her up and made her realize that any further contact with this man was toxic to not only her, but the unborn child as well. Hence went to end things in person for good. When he snapped on her, she became a shell of herself and developed a phobia for any other males but me. At one point she couldn't even use the bathroom at night unless I was holding her hand. Sad. Right after the baby was born. Son, by the way, we got a paternity test and he was mine. But the more time I spent with her, the more I realized I didn't hate my wife. I actually loved her. I couldn't see the woman I married, but instead saw his leftovers. Each time I looked at her, I decided to leave because I was afraid I'd do something I'd regret and be exactly like her abusive ex. She begged me not to leave and even made the ridiculous offer of giving me a hall pass as well as slapping her if I wanted to. I knew at this point I had to get out. She was actually very generous. During the divorce, she moved back into her parents and signed a very well thought out co-parenting plan issued by the courts. Moving forward. 3 years later, and I meet my now fiancé by chance. I was in a bookstore with a buddy of mine and we were discussing Egyptian mythology when this beautiful woman approached me to correct me on my pronunciations of the Egyptian gods and cities. Needless to say, immensely impressed by not only her understanding, but also by the fact that she is Egyptian herself. We exchanged numbers, which eventually lead us to dating. When I finally proposed to her, it was actually in front of the peach tree I had planted years ago. I got down on one knee, but before I got my answer, she ran into the house, then came out with a ring as well. Turns out she was actually planning on proposing herself because she was madly in love with me, and she just didn't want any other woman to have me. My son and all his sweet childlike innocence told his mother what happened because he was present when it happened. My ex literally showed up that night in the rain, yelling about how could I propose to her, my fiancé, in front of our tree, and that this isn't the end of us. I am completely exhausted at this point. I cannot go and see because she is the mother of my child, but she is basically harassing me and my fiancé. How do I convince her to move on, to get over her fear of men, and not force me to get a restraining order? Sorry it was long, but I am really desperate. Edit wanted to ask a question to the insightful women of Reddit. Something that still bugs me to this day is the fact that she even made time for her ex, who took pleasure in destroying her, only for her to suffer a much worse fate. Is it normal for the abused to want the attention of the abuser, even if she might hate him? Something my ex said once. Edit 2, forget to add this in the original post. When my fiancé presented me with a ring which she was going to use to propose to me, she had an engraving on the inner band which states to my pharaoh. Damn, I love this woman. Update discovered my wife's now ex-affair the day she was admitted in the hospital. Now, years later, she can't accept my engagement to my fiancé. I didn't expect this type of response. Thank you all so much for your support and kind words, both for me, my fiancé, and my ex. It's sad that my situation with my ex and her abusive past isn't as uncommon as I thought. Reading some of your similar cases really makes one almost lose hope, but glad to see some people have recovered from them. Now, for what has happened since my first post. First off, a big thank you to usermama202045 for your simple yet amazing advice. Saved us a lot of trouble. Now on to what has happened so far since my last post. My son's birthday was coming up and he told us he wanted to have a camp night for it. Now I must explain. The boy absolutely loves the outdoors. Everything from camping to hiking to even playing in rivers are his favorite. And obviously due to the ongoing situation we cannot go to our usual spots, so I offered my backyard for it. Another request he had was for my ex to sleep over as well. He wanted to imitate a scene from one of his kid adventure shows where both parents are sitting on either of the child and all three are roasting marshmallows on the campfire. Now, I had absolutely no intention of denying my son's birthday wishes, but at the same time, I couldn't have my ex sleep in the same tent as me and my son. That would be far too disrespectful to my fiancé. Even though she said she understood, it was clear she wasn't okay with it. My ex seemed to take advantage of this and kept saying how much she was looking forward to spending the night with her two men, and even went as far as to buy a whole lot of camping equipment that would put Bear Grylls to shame. She was certainly trying to rub it in my fiancé's face and wasn't graceful about it either. I had to tell her to stop a couple of times, but she only relented when I threatened to invite her sister. Ever since our divorce, my ex has had a burning hatred for her sister. She, my ex, acknowledges her role in the destruction of our marriage, but blames her sister for encouraging the affair and not safeguarding from her making choices that would ruin hers. But more importantly, according to her, our life together. It's gotten so bad that she refuses to let her sister spend any significant amount of time with our son, which at one point caused my ex-cell to have severe depression. My ex-cell has been trying for years to reconcile with her sister, but it just seems to get worse as time goes on. A Redditor, Mama202045, offered me a simple and effective solution. She suggested I go out and purchase a multi-room tent. That way, my fiancé could be included. I wasted no time and immediately went out to get one. Of course, my ex wasn't too happy about that, but was glad to be under the same roof as me. During the birthday celebration, my son was on cloud 9. He ran around the yard and pretended he was a great explorer discovering a new land. When evening came, I made the fire and my ex provided the marshmallows. He excitingly sat between us and started roasting his marshmallow alongside us. What I didn't expect was after we were done taking pictures and making s'mores, he handed my fiancée a stick and a marshmallow as well and sat next to her to make a second s'more. It's honestly a mystery how something this pure and perfect could come out of the absolute mess that was the relationship between me and my ex. My ex asked for a bit of my time, to which I obliged. We stepped into the kitchen and she apologized for her behavior on the day that I proposed, but not for her actions following that. She told me she still sees me as her husband and her mind, so the thought of me giving my heart to another terrified her. She said she never wanted to cause me pain and would give anything to go back in time and undo her mistakes. She mentioned how happy she was when the paternity test showed that I was the father, because she thought it was a new beginning for us was proof our love. I thanked her for the courage to share all this, but told her I was happy with where I was in life and with whom I was with, but hoped she would find someone to make her happy as well.